Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 20th of January, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar. Had quite a steep climb these last few days, putting us back into bullish short-term territory. Medium term, we've still got work to do, and the long term is still bullish. So, dollar strength is very much a theme in FX this week. And if we look at the euro, we see the euro sinking to new lows. So, dollar strength, euro weakness. The yen, we're seeing also the dollar looking strong here, just flat the last couple of days, but holding on to its strength, bullish in all three time frames. And the yen is normally a very good barometer for sentiment. So we are just seeing that long-term change on the yen, looking quite positive there. Taking a look at sterling. We see that sterling actually falling away against the dollar. Chancellor's comments on the EU not helping there, and we're just seeing that that move lower. And if we look at sterling against the euro, we're seeing here also it's just struggling a little bit. But sterling and euro generally moving in lockstep against the dollar. We're seeing against the Swiss franc, sterling also a little bit flat here. As well. Taking a look at Bitcoin now, quite big falls on the weekend. We saw yesterday they fell away, of course, traded 24/7 Bitcoin, so quite a big fall, putting us into short-term bearish territory. Downside target 11% lower. We have got upside targets, and the long-term chart does look like it's making a transition, but it's a pretty mixed picture. Of course, the US markets closed today for Martin Luther King Day, but we did see quite a big move last week, taking us to new all-time highs. The S&P 500 index, we've still got 33% upside on this chart, and the other indices looking much the same, of course. Taking a look at the UK market, without the US Open, we're a little bit directionless. We're up down 0.4% today, and the Midcaps in the UK down 0.1%, but holding on to the bullish trend there. Looking at the DAX, we're also up very slightly today, and still holding on to the bull trends there. And the CAC Coron's actually down 1/3%, but again, looking quite bullish. Japan was up 0.49% overnight, so that market's still looking better, bullish above the cloud on all three time zones. And the Hang Seng also was down nearly 1%, but still looking pretty good. And the Shanghai Composite, the Chinese market, actually looking good. And we're seeing a long-term transition here on the weekly chart with new upside targets creeping in. We do have the old targets hanging over us, but it does look like we are making a new transition to a new bull trend. The Sensex in India, we were down just 1%, but the chart just holding on still there, and the Aussie market up 0.2%. Brent crude recovering today. We're back into short-term bullish mode here after last week's fall on the Iran sentiment evading. We saw a jump in crude on Iran earlier in the year and then a fall away back to where we started. But we are looking still quite strong on crude oil, and WTI much the same picture. This is the time of year that crude does tend to rise, the seasonal effect. Last week we saw big falls in US NatGas, falling right below $2, taking us to really much lower levels. So that's really significant as well. And if we look at the other products in energy, we see here heating oil also moved as well. Looking at gold now, gold is looking strong. We're just on that long-term chart looking pretty good. We did, of course, touch the $1,600 mark on the Iran crisis earlier this year, but we've pulled back from that. But we are short-term bullish. We've got an upside target of $1,585. Does look like we will come back and try and visit that $1,600 mark for gold, so that's looking pretty good. And if we look at silver, much the same picture there as well. US 10-year yields sitting at 1.82%. They are gradually recovering. It just seems to be quite a lot of resistance just under this 2% mark. So it'll be a sustained move above 2% is what we really need to be sure this recovery is in train. And the Bund we're seeing has recovered a little bit. The bond price is, of course, inverted from the yield price, and we are just seeing we're going sideways there. This data all coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon, or if you're a private user, Metastock Zenith. Really powerful system to run your Updata system on. Taking a look now at international markets, of course, we're closed today in the US, but last week on Friday we saw some quite big performances there. Visa up 1.87%. They're rocketing to new all-time highs there with still upside targets to play for. Boeing's woes continue. They were the worst performer on the Dow, and their long-term chart just turning bearish. Not good, underperforming the market by 20% over the last 12 months. So again, not great. Taking a look at the NASDAQ, the best performer was Qualcomm. They were up 4.5% and breaking to new highs. That chart looking really good as well. And on the downside in the Nasdaq, we had CDW Corporation. They were down 5%. But the chart's still looking amazing, even though we did just see that big gap down on Friday. In the Aussie market, we take a look at the top performers. Silver Lake Resources up 6%, Fortescue Metals up 3.6%, and nudging new highs there on Silver Lake. And on the downside, NIB Holdings down 12.6%. That was quite a fall, taking them into long-term bearish territory. The chart was already bearish on the medium term. Nifty 50 in India, if we take a look at this market, Power Grid Corporation up 3.6%, best performer. Very hard chart to read there. If we take a look on the downside, we've got Kotak Mahindra down 4.7%. So that's also quite tricky. That chart just starting to look a little bit more bearish on the medium-term chart, but the long-term trend still very much in train. Taking a look now at Europe, we start with the UK market. The best performer in the FTSE 100 is BAE Systems. They're up 3% on news of a deal in the US. Barratt Developments up 2.2%. They're pushing much higher as well. And if we take a look at the downside, we've got NMC Health. They're down 3.5%. This data all coming to you from from Yahoo Finance, so a good free data source to feed into your Updata system. Taking a look now at the 250, we've got AG Bar. They're up down 3%. They're the worst performer today, having fallen in the middle of last year. They've never really recovered from that fall. And on the upside, we've got Finbar. They're up 4.2%, and there we see the live pricing coming in from Yahoo Finance. And if we look at the Euro Stoxx 50, Telefonica in Italy, they're up 2%, but that chart's still looking very much in a downtrend. And if we take a look at the fallers, LVMH, they're down 2%, but the chart looking great. So we're seeing quite a lot of counter trend moves today, and that's what we need to keep an eye on. Of course, the US closed today. Until next time, happy charting. See you then.